my Kumba friend, you have the floor.
I thank you for yielding. I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the data, it is clear that since the start of the Obama administration and the passage of the Recovery Act, which you've heard depicted by the three former speakers, we are stemming the number of job losses per month. There is no doubt about that. But we need to do everything we can to actually start gaining jobs instead of just losing fewer. And it would seem by the charts, it would seem by the facts, that in the next several months, we will see finally, for the first time in several years, a plus in terms of the creation of jobs. The U.S. jobs deficit has reached millions. Our unemployment rate is 9.7%. That is an intolerable rate. What we are facing is how to address the shortfall in employment opportunities and articulate a new strategy that targets and engages our small businesses and American workers. Mr. Speaker, we simply need jobs. Which brings me to what I think is the most obvious answer. It was obvious many years ago, it's obvious now, our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is in disrepair. And it's not just our roads, and it's not just our bridges that are falling down. Earlier this year, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave the nation's wastewater systems and water systems the lowest grade of any infrastructure category, a D-. And I want to have our viewers in the House, this is a rotted water main pipe, much like the pipes in many of our districts and many of our communities. I like to call these the out-of-sight, out-of-mind pipes. You don't see them until you have a problem with your water main. But as we have learned over the last couple of years, just because our infrastructure needs are not visible doesn't mean that they are not deteriorating. A quick look at the recent news headlines across the country illustrates the state of our water infrastructure, and I can only list a few because time does not permit. The Franklin water main break closes roads and schools. Boil your water, says Franklin, New Jersey. The Lancaster water main breaks. A sinkhole swallows a car in California. The water main break in Manhattan causes evacuations and traffic. Subway disruptions, New York City. The water main break cuts off water service to the medical center in West Virginia. Here we have an illustration of the water main break on River Road in Bethesda, Maryland. Watching people airlifted out of their cars. We're not making this stuff up. This is real. In metropolitan D.C. on Christmas Eve 2008 was quite a spectacle. One headline actually read, "Water main break forces dramatic rescue of 9. The road literally exploded." We cannot turn a blind eye to two realities. America needs jobs, and our infrastructure cannot put people to work fast enough. As a former mayor of Paterson, New Jersey, I understand the significance of local water and wastewater systems. A strong water infrastructure is essential to the community's public health and economic vitality. The Environmental Protection Agency and the General Accounting Office estimate that community water systems will require $500 billion above their expected rate of investment in order to meet safe drinking water standards and sanitation needs just over the next 20 years. As Congress struggles with historic deficits, I strongly believe that we must leverage private capital investment and look at options for public-private partnerships. And that's what we are talking about this evening. In order to encourage this possibility, I introduced the Sustainable Water Infrastructure Investment Act, H.R. 537, which will generate significant investment through the use of tax-exempt bonds for water infrastructure, and that is water and wastewater projects. Congress already exempts airports, intercity rail, solid waste disposal sites from those bond caps. My bill would remove water infrastructure projects from the cap as well. By exempting water projects from the bond cap, we can get people working on the very project in 90 to 120 days. This isn't hot air. This is real relief. This is real jobs. Standards & Poor's estimates that $180 billion in new money infrastructure is available for investment. This capital cannot be deployed until a private activity bond cap exemption is crested. This legislation aims to repair our crumbling water infrastructure while leveraging private capital to create jobs. Every dollar invested in public water and sewer infrastructure will add $8.97 to the national economy. This is a win-win situation. Economists estimate $1 billion investment in water infrastructure will create 28,500 local jobs. You cannot, in any manner, shape, or form, produce any other job plan that's going to do what this can do, because these are our needs. These need to be done because things are only going to get worse. That pipe which I showed you before is not going to cleanse itself. It has led that pipe and many other pipes like it to this particular situation of people being airlifted, in terms of rescue workers having to go to a particular community, and of course vehicles that have been raised in the air because of the explosion of our water mains. 28,500 jobs in 1 year. This is bipartisan legislation. Both sides of the aisle have signed on to this. It could put Americans in every state to work within 120 days of the enactment. It is time to focus on creating jobs and building a strong infrastructure for future generations. Let's stop talking about what needs to get done, and let's actually get this done. There are huge economic benefits that come with water and wastewater infrastructure projects. In fact, a recent study found that every $1 billion invested in water and wastewater infrastructure creates 27,000 new jobs with average annual earnings of more than $50,000. Each $1 billion invested generates approximately $82.4 million in state and local tax revenue at a time when states and localities need it most. This chart shows how construction dollars ripple through local communities. Right here, an estimated 20,000 to 26,669 jobs can result from a national investment of $1 billion in water and wastewater infrastructure. Everything from construction to real estate, to retail, to legal services, to management of companies and enterprises, to private households, and to maintenance and repair. This chart shows how these construction dollars ripple through our entire community. Let's face it, this unemployment situation that we are in today, 40% of those jobs will never return. 40% of those jobs that have been lost, get this, are people who are out of work more than 6 to 8 months. They will not return to those jobs. We need to invest with the private community in order to do things that must be done that communities cannot afford. We found that every $1 billion invested in these projects creates jobs in 325 other industries, and they're listed. I urge all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to take action to support this legislation, to push the passage for measures that will empower American workers, provide them with opportunities. Eligible and essential public health and environmental projects approved for 2010 are waiting for funding, are waiting for private and public investment. We can leverage at a very short time, and the resulting jobs are important. In California, 285,000 jobs can be created. In Illinois, 133,950 jobs. In New Jersey, 1.8 billion will mean 51,300 jobs on projects that are needed in every state we go over. This is the case. 60 different organizations support this legislation, from engineers to waterworks associations, to equipment manufacturers, Caterpillar, Coca-Cola, Design Build Institute of America. 60 different organizations support this bipartisan legislation that will create jobs and not hot air. We've had a lot of hot air in Washington. I think what we need, my good friend, Mr. Boccieri, and I thank you for bringing us together tonight. America needs jobs. This is our priority. I have presented an idea I hope will be accepted, and I hope that America can get back to work again. Our people need jobs, and jobs that will be needed and are needed so that we don't have to make work. Remember school, make work, keep the kids busy. These are things we need. We understand this. We don't look at it because these waterworks, whether they're sewers, whether they're water, whether they're watersheds, are all mostly under the ground. And so we never think. It's not a romantic, it's not a sexy thing to talk about. But I am presenting to the House a way to put people to work. These jobs need to be done, and the private and public sector must be brought together. And with that, I yield back, and I thank you for allowing me to share in this important evening. Thank you.
Well, a gentleman from New Jersey who not only has senior a number of the years, has some very good ideas that we have got to look at very seriously about putting our country back to work. And for long-term investments, and you know,